They asked that I attempt to find Sergio, that she was having no luck with the phone number that she had. I discovered that he was on federal probation, so I contacted his probation officer, Mr. Ingram, who gave me a phone number, which was the phone number that we had. He was just refusing to answer it. I advised Mr. Ingram that it was possible that the prosecution would ask for a material witness warrant if Mr. Alfredo refused to cooperate and accept the subpoena. He said he would contact him and see if he would contact me. Just a couple hours after I spoke to Mr. Ingram, Mr. Alfredo did call me back. Said that he would meet me. We met at, I believe it was Highway 25 and 231 in Hartsville. I served the subpoena, told him it was imperative that he appear in court, that if he did fail to appear, that the prosecution would ask for a material witness warrant. He assured me that he would be here. I gave him my phone number and asked him to call me when he arrived in court. He did in fact call me Monday morning and met me in the lobby. From there, I escorted him up to our victim witness room where he waited there. And it was my understanding that he was going to return Tuesday morning. However, he failed to return Tuesday morning. At that point, a material witness warrant was issued. Specialized investigation with Metro Police Department, they were contacted and they agreed to assist in the search for Mr. Alvarado. I went back to Hartsville and Lafayette, checked a few addresses there, spoke to his mother, and she had not seen him. She assumed he was in court, which was not correct. Specialized investigations discovered a location where they believed him to be, and it was an apartment complex in West Nashville. They didn't have a specific apartment number, so they canvassed the area, searched the area, couldn't locate him. I've texted his phone and I've called his phone. Every time I've called it, it appeared to be off. It went straight to voicemail.
And up to this moment, are people still trying to search for and find Mr. Alvarado?
Yes, ma'am. I reached out to Specialized Investigations yesterday and asked them if they would continue their search through today, and they agreed to do that.
Okay. And has he been found?
No, ma'am.
Okay. If he had been found, what would have happened when the material witness warrant was served on him?
I spoke to the detective sergeant in charge, and he said that he would present him directly to this court.
And obviously that also has not happened.
No, ma'am, it has not.
Okay. And then one other question. Since you've had direct interaction with Mr. Alvarado, can you testify about whether or not he has a tattoo on his face?
He does.
And where is that?
He has one over his eye, and he has one on his left cheek running down his face.
And Your Honor, I asked that question just because it would corroborate the identification of Sergio Alvarado, and also it corroborates J.C. Harper's testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Quillen, cross-examination.
It's my understanding Mr. Alvarado and his mother operate a sort of Western wear / feed store in Hartsville.
Well, you know, I did not realize that initially when I spoke to his mother. She said that he worked at a feed store and clothing store in Lafayette, Tennessee. So we drove to Lafayette, spent most of the morning in Lafayette checking the feed stores in Lafayette. He didn't work at any of those. Then we discovered this Western clothing and feed store was actually just outside the city limits of Hartsville on Highway 25 and 231. but I don't know I don't know if they operate it, own it, or what their involvement is, but it's my understanding he and his mother both worked there. Yes, sir.
Okay, and you've been to that place?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, anything redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Investigator Martin.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so now the question is, General.
The question is whether or not that testimony would be relevant.
Yeah, and you must saw me reach over and grab the rules of evidence as as he was testifying.
Your Honor, it's important for the state to be able to present that evidence because to resolve whether or not the jury is wondering why the state said that he would be here and now he's not here. We said that in our opening statement. Also, we've presented proof where we've talked about this person. They've seen video of this person. And it would answer the question as to why he now, at this point, is not here and why they are not hearing from him. And this is not, and it's a situation that the state did everything that we could legally do to obtain his presence here and actually did get his presence here on Monday.
Okay.
And I will say, as an officer of a court, I participated in the conversation, or was aware it was here in the courtroom. As Your Honor knows, when Mr. Alvarado stood right here, was ordered by Your Honor to come back, and he refused to do it. He told Your Honor, after Your Honor asked him at least 2 times, "You're going to come back. You are going to be here tomorrow," and he misled the court.
And I guess is it your position that under 401 that this is a fact that is of consequence?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Since we have put on proof about this person, everybody's been talking about this person. Detective Beavis testified that he was able to identify Poppy and the person who we see in the videos as Sergio Alvarado. We've made statements about him being here. We anticipated his testimony in this case.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Quillen?
Well, there's no further testimony needed as to identification because Ms. J.C. Harper identified the photo from 2:04 a.m., identified Mr. Mosley, Daniel Sevilla, and I think
I don't think well, I guess the last question that she asked goes to that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that seems to be part of why they would like to have Mr. Martin testify.
Okay.
And, I mean, I just don't want to call attention to the fact
Well, just
Attention to what? Hold on. Attention to what fact?
that he's not here.
Well, and the state wants to call attention to the fact that he's not here.
In response to what he just said, if he was here, the jury would be able to see the tattoo on his face and be able to see that he's the same person in the video.
Yeah, I think that that's not as big of an issue, the whole identification piece. I think what is at issue is the fact that he is not here. That's and is the fact that he is not here something that the state needs to be able to address under 401. I think that is the ultimate issue.
Well,
I am a little less concerned about the identity piece and more concerned about that. I don't know what Mr. Alvarado would have testified. I don't know. I have no idea what he would have testified to. I'm going to assume that it would have been something related to the alleged drug transaction, I guess. I don't know. That point is something that is of consequence because for the whole purpose of the hearing that we just had previously, and that is whether or not Mr. Mosley was engaged in unlawful conduct. So I think that was the whole point of it. So I'm, like I said, I'm a little less concerned about identity and just a lot more concerned about the fact and trying to determine whether or not Investigator Martin's testimony is something that is allowed under 401, 402, and 403.
And at this point, Your Honor, we still don't know whether it's a willful contempt, his absence, so.
Oh, okay. I guess, I don't know. All right. As as I look at 401, I think that it is the fact that it's of consequence based upon the proof that has been presented to this point. As I look at, and we'll come in under 402, and I've tried to look, I am looking at 403 and trying to determine whether or not there's anything about his testimony that, under 403, that should result in exclusion, and I don't see any, so I'll allow Investigator Martin to testify. All right, now, the dreadful question, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right, line 'em up. Ask Debbie, oh, I guess I should ask this, and it's probably, I don't know if you wanna wait until after the state closes its proof, Mr. Quillen, if the court should address the moment now or later. I can do it later,
Address which?
the moment oath.
Oh, okay.
I can do that later if you prefer.
I would prefer to later.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Okay, we may all be seated. Let the record reflect that all of the members of the jury who are trying the case are present this morning in the courtroom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all. It was a little stormy last night, wasn't it? I hope everybody was, I hope you didn't have any issues or anything with that. Is it cold in here today? It was burning up yesterday. We can never get the temperature adjusted. I'm sorry. We'll see if we can adjust it just a little bit for you. It was burning up in here yesterday and the day before, but they probably heard me complain about it being so hot and turned it down. Y'all know I'm gonna ask the question. Y'all remember my rule yesterday? Did everybody comply with my rule? All right, okay. All right, are we ready to resume?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You want it ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Randy Martin.
Randy Martin.
Your Honor, my understanding is that a short time ago, Mr. Martin started walking back towards the office, but now he's walking back here now. I apologize for the delay.
Like, what's the ETA?
Well, he couldn't have gotten too far because he was here just a moment ago. Maybe a couple of minutes.
Y'all give us just
did.
Would you please state your name?
Randy Martin, Martin.
Where do you work?
I'm an investigator with the District Attorney's Office in Nashville.
And what do you as an investigator typically do?
We, most of our time is trying to locate witnesses and serve subpoenas.
Okay, and bringing your attention to this particular case, were you asked to serve some subpoenas on several of the witnesses in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And was one of those witnesses Sergio Alvarado?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury the steps that you took in order to get him served with a subpoena?
Yes, ma'am. It began on March 15th. We were asked to attempt to locate him. I discovered that he was on probation. I contacted his probation officer, left a message with him. We had a phone number that we were attempting to call, but Mr. Alvarado was not answering that number. Once I made contact with the probation officer, I discovered that the number we had was an accurate number. From there, we had an address, a home address, went to the home address. It was indeed his home. However, he was not there at the time. His mother was. I spoke to her, told her who we were, and that we were looking for him to serve a subpoena. And it was imperative that he gave us a call. And if he refused to contact us, knowing that we were looking for him, we believed that a material witness warrant was going to be asked for.
And can you pause there and tell the jury what a material witness warrant is?
Yes, ma'am. Material witness warrant is used when we have witnesses that are avoiding being served subpoenas or have been served a subpoena and refuse to cooperate and appear in court. The court will issue that warrant. Once they're arrested, they are brought to court and they will testify at that point.
And after you told his mother that we would be seeking a material witness warrant if we were unable to have contact with him or have his subpoena served, what happened after that?
I left my name and my phone number with her and asked her to have Mr. Alvarado contact me. Then shortly after that, she gave us a place of business to look for him at, but she was vague in the business, said it was a feed store in Lafayette, Tennessee. So we drove from Hartsville to Lafayette. There were 3 feed stores that we stopped at, and he did not work at any of those. In the meantime, Mr. Alvarado's probation officer contacted me. I spoke to him and explained the same thing to him of our intentions of obtaining the warrant. And he said he would try to contact Mr. Alvarado and have him call me. Shortly after I spoke to Mr. Ingram, Mr. Alvarado did call. He expressed his concerns about testifying, said he did not want to testify, but he would meet me the next day. We met at Highway 25 and Highway 231 near Hartsville. Served the subpoena, and I've got a copy of the subpoena that I served. And I explained to him that this was a serious matter and that it was my understanding that we were going to ask for a material witness warrant if he failed to appear, and this may possibly violate his probation.
And when did you tell him he was supposed to appear?
I told him he was supposed to appear on Monday, March 28th.
Okay. And did he actually appear?
He did. I left him my cell phone number and asked him to contact me when he arrived at the courthouse. Monday morning, approximately 8:15, 8:30, he called and said he was here. I met him in the lobby and escorted him to our victim witness room where he remained until that afternoon.
And as you know, we did not start proof until Tuesday.
Correct.
Was he told to come back on Tuesday?
Yes, ma'am, he was, and he was warned that if he failed to appear on Tuesday morning, that a warrant would in fact be issued for his arrest.
Okay. Did he appear on Tuesday morning?
He did not.
Okay. And then after he didn't appear, what efforts did you make to get him to appear?
I attempted to call him several times. His phone had been turned off. I texted him.
And let me pause there. Was there a material witness warrant issued?
Yes, ma'am. The warrant was issued.
Okay. And then you attempted to call him.
Yes, ma'am. It was going straight to voicemail, so it appeared that his phone had been shut off. Specialized Investigations with Metro Police Department was contacted, and they agreed to assist us in that manner. They began searching for him, and late Tuesday night, I got a phone call saying that they had located an area that they believed Mr. Alvarado was located. They searched that area but did not find him.
Okay. And did efforts to continue searching for him, have they gone on continuously up until this very moment?
They're continuing at this moment.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And obviously at this point they have been unable to serve that material witness warrant.
Yes, ma'am, they have.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity, you testified that you actually served the subpoena to him, that you made contact with him when he came to court on Monday. Were you able to observe whether or not he had any tattoos?
He did. He had facial tattoos. He had a tattoo over his eye, and he had a tattoo that ran down the side of his face.
Your Honor, those are my questions.
Okay, Mr. Floyd? Your Honor. Okay, thank you. Investigator Martin. Okay, General, are you ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's next witness is Alva Bethurum.
Alva Bethurum?
It's actually Bethurum.
Bethurum? Alva Bethurum?
Sir, if you would, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
Alva Jefferson Bethurum Jr.
And could you please spell your first name for the court reporter?
ALVA.
And if you could actually lean in a little bit closer to the microphone just to make sure everybody can hear you.
Is this better? A little
Yeah,
bit better?
maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay,
How about
that's
now?
good. Can you spell your last name for the court reporter, Mr. Bethurum?
Bethurum.
And Mr. Bethurum, do you go by AJ?
I do.
How old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
And where are you from?
Franklin, Tennessee.
Where did you go to school?
Battleground Academy.
And when did you start at BGA?
I started there in kindergarten.
Where did you go after you graduated from BGA?
I attended the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
And did you graduate from that university?
Yes, I graduated with a degree in biochem.
When did you graduate?
May of 2020.
What are you currently doing?
I'm currently enrolled at ETSU. I'm in med school, getting an MD degree, and also getting a master's of public health.
And can you describe, how tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
How much do you currently weigh?
I'm 180 pounds.
And back in December of 2019, how much did you weigh?
Roughly 155 pounds.
So you were smaller then than you are currently here today, is that right?
Very much so.
Can you describe your high school friends and your relationship with them?
It was awesome. I mean, a lot of us had known each other since kindergarten. We had a big group that stayed at BGA all the way through. And then, everyone who was added to that class throughout our time there, I mean, we just welcomed them with open arms, and we were, super close, super tight.
Are you still close with them today?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you about Clay Beathard. When did you meet him?
I met Clay in 8th grade.
And can you describe him?
Just a godly individual, all around just funny guy, fun to be around, a true athlete. I mean, the guy had it all. He is awesome.
And did you ever know Clay to be the type of person to pick a fight?
No.
Or kind of egg on a fight even?
No.
And what about Paul Trapeni? Can you describe him?
Paul is probably the funniest person I've ever met. He had this kind of laughable, not kind of class clown aspect to him where he would just make everyone laugh, but when you needed him and you needed to talk about something, he would be the most genuine, honest, caring person he could be with you.
So he's a class clown, but he also had a kind of serious side to him as well.
Yes.
And can you describe your friendship with Sam Folks?
Me and Sam are super good friends. I met him 8th grade as well, and we stayed friends throughout high school and college. And when I was in Knoxville, he would come up and visit, hang out on the weekends sometime. And he was in Martin. I would sometimes be in Martin over winter break, waterfowl hunting, and hang out with him then. So we stayed close throughout.
And is he the type of person that would pick a fight?
No.
And can you describe your friendship with Wilson McCullough?
About the same as the last two. Wilson and I have been friends since roughly 8th grade as well. Wilson's an awesome guy. I mean, we're super close and have remained close throughout the past 9 years. We're great friends.
And is he the type of person to pick a fight?
No.
And can you describe, what did you know about his relationship with Emma Yoder?
So Emma Yoder and Wilson kind of had a friendly high school relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, that kind of somewhat dissolved after high school. I'm not sure of all the details on it, but they were not currently dating at the time of everything that happened.
But were they still friends?
Very much so.
And kind of drawing your attention specifically to the night that all of this happened, can you describe that night? What were you doing prior to going to the McCullough's house?
I believe I'd just gotten back from West Tennessee. I'd been waterfowl hunting, came back for this specific reason because I knew all my friends were getting together and I wanted to catch up with them. So I probably got home and took a nap and then headed over to the McCullough's house.
And can you describe what you were doing at the McCullough's house?
We were just hanging out. I mean, all 10 of us, no 2 of us went to the same university, so it had been a while since we had all seen each other. So we were just catching up, talking, took some pictures, just hanging out, really.
And do you remember that at some point you left?
Yes.
And where did you guys go?
We went to the Midtown area of Nashville.
Had you ever been there before?
No.
What was the first place that you went to?
We went to the Kung Fu bar.
And do you have any idea how long you guys stayed there?
I remember we went there and walked in and found out that the other group of friends that we were trying to meet up with were actually at Dogwood. So I bought a beer and I was about a third of the way through it, maybe halfway through it, when we left to leave to go to the Dogwood Bar. We were there maybe 15 minutes.
And after you left Kung Fu, you did go to Dogwood Bar, is that right?
Correct.
And can you describe the mood and atmosphere there?
About the same. As we caught up and were having a good time with all of the friends from our class, it was the same with the group of people we met up with, because they were actually a group of students that graduated a year prior to us. So we were talking to them about the same topics, how they were doing, where they were, things like that.
And did anything happen inside the bar that you thought was unusual or out of the ordinary, or was it just good times hanging out with friends?
Just good times hanging out with friends.
And at some point, y'all did leave the bar, is that right?
Correct.
Do you remember anything happening on the way out of the bar that concerned you?
No.
And I want to ask you specifically about what you remembered in 2019. So after this date of December 21st, 2019, when you looked back on it, what did you remember happening when you left the Dogwood Bar?
I remembered walking out, and as I got to the sidewalk, kind of going to the left, and then all of a sudden I turned around and there's this fight occurring. And that fight slowly moved across the street, and in the process it looked like it was not de-escalating, and there was a female who was forcibly put on the ground, and then I became involved in the scenario, and the events transpired.
Did you have a perfectly clear memory of everything that happened?
Mostly. There were some very minor details that the video helped to clear up, but it was just so chaotic that initially my memory had to have some gaps filled in, because I think after an event like that you kind of try to block it out, but for the most part my memory was correct.
And can you describe what happened to you personally when you left the Dogwood Bar that night?
So when I left the Dogwood Bar that night, this event was occurring, this fight, and I saw that it was moving across the street. It was not dispersing. It looked very aggressive, and I went to the defense, try to break it up or defend my friends. I confronted an individual, and then after confronting that individual, I was stabbed multiple times.
Where were you stabbed?
I was stabbed right under my left eye and also in my left arm.
And when you say under your left eye, was it just the skin under your eye, or where exactly were you stabbed?
No, I was stabbed. That was the entry point. The knife actually went up through the front of my eye, through the back of my eye, and actually through the posterior wall of my orbit. And I actually had an air pocket in my brain because it went through my skull.
So the knife went into the side of your face, but into your eyeball, through the back of your eyeball, and into your skull.
Yes.
And then you said you were also stabbed in your elbow?
Yes.
And can you describe that?
I was stabbed approximately right here. The knife came in at about this angle and actually went into the joint capsule, probably about 1.5 inches or 2 inches into my arm.
And can you describe that moment of, you said that you went to kind of break up the fight, but also defend your friends.
Yes.
What was it that you saw happen that you felt like your friends needed defending?
Well, when I initially saw this fight occurring, in my mind I figured this was just, a simple disagreement, some guys pushing and shoving, and it would dissolve as it just moved away a little bit. But As it crossed the street, there were still punches being thrown. It was not de-escalating, and a female got pushed over in the process, shoved to the ground, and that's, in my mind, that is not a simple conflict anymore. That's malice, and my friends are in danger. They're getting shoved to the ground, they're getting punched, and this is obviously not just going to simply dissolve.
And so when you go over there, what did you do?
I walked up to an individual who was a little bit shorter than me, maybe by 2 inches, and I put my hands out, confronted him, and I'm not sure what was exchanged, but I ended up hitting that individual in the face, and then not that individual, someone else reached around and stabbed me. I never saw the knife, never saw anything, and I actually originally thought I'd just been punched.
What direction did that, what ultimately is a stab that you thought was a punch, what direction did that come from?
That was from my left side.
And that initial contact, is that the contact with your eye?
Yes.
And at that moment, can you describe what happens with your left eye?
So my vision immediately went out in that eye, and I knew in my head I'm incapacitated, like I can no longer participate in trying to get this fight to break up. I'm done. So I immediately started moving away. I thought that originally, I know some boxers, they get punched in the face and they have a retinal detachment. I thought that maybe would have been what happened to me. So I held my hand over my eye and just kind of moved away from the situation.
Do you remember anything happening to your left elbow?
No.
And at what point, I guess you said that you did not know that you had been stabbed. You thought you had been punched and there was something wrong with your eye.
Correct.
At what point do you realize that something more than just a punch has happened to you?
It was at least a minute and a half later. After I was stabbed, I went to the ground, and Patrick Wells came over and helped me up. And
Which, when you say you went to the ground, did you go to the ground or did you get pushed to the ground?
originally, this is one of the minor details I was talking about earlier. Originally, I thought I had gone to the ground voluntarily, but I was walking away, and on the video you can see I have my hand over my eye, and this, a couple people come over and shove into me, and I went to the ground after that.
And that's something that you initially did not remember.
Correct.
And so at some point after this event, did you talk to a detective?
Yes.
And then after you talked to the detective, did the detective show you a portion of the video?
Yes.
And is that how you're able to kind of differentiate between what you initially remembered and then what you saw?
Yes.
And did you see all of the video back when the detective showed it to you?
No.
Just a small portion of it, is that right?
Correct.
So kind of going back to the actual incident,
Mm-hmm.
you said that you know now that you were knocked to the ground.
Yes.
And who was there with you?
When I got up, Patrick Wells was there, and we were kind of just trying to see what was going on. I was obviously dazed and maybe a little bit in shock, so we were trying to talk through that.
And when did you realize that something had happened to your friends?
In that conversation with Patrick, I'm not sure who it was, but I very clearly remember someone saying, "Clay's been stabbed."
Did you see Clay being stabbed?
I did not see Clay being stabbed.
Did you see Paul being stabbed?
I did not.
And you've already testified that you did not see yourself get stabbed.
No.
Did you ever see a weapon?
No.
And can you describe kind of your injury? You've described that the actual stabbing of your injury, but can you describe your eye injury and what you went through?
Sure. So after this event, I went to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. The next day, I underwent kind of a damage control operation. And roughly 2 weeks or a week after that, I had another operation to repair my retina. Throughout the course of the next few months, I actually was starting to gain back a small portion of vision kind of in my periphery. But at that same time, I had a cataract form due to the trauma to my eye. So in July of 2020, I underwent cataract surgery to remove the lens, and upon doing so, they were able to get another look at my retina in the back of my eye, and throughout the course of those few months, it had actually scarred down, and I don't have any vision out of it now.
And you previously testified at another hearing, is that correct?
Correct.
And at that time, did you have some vision?
At that point, that was between the second and third operation when I was starting to gain a little bit of vision back. But as the cataract grew in, they weren't able to get a clear picture of my eye, and it also took out that vision as well. And once they were able to get that out, they noticed that over those couple months, the retina had scarred down.
And so currently, can you describe what amount of vision do you have out of your left eye?
No vision.
And can you describe what, if any, pain that either of your two injuries caused you?
The elbow injury was, I didn't feel it at first. The injury itself, I didn't know I had until minutes after it actually happened. But the treatment for it was pretty excruciating. Once I got to the hospital, since the knife had gone into the joint capsule, they had to insert a large bore needle into the other side of the joint capsule to irrigate it and flush it out to prevent any infection. And that was extremely painful. And then with the eye stuff, 3 pretty good operations, multiple big in-clinic procedures. It's been physically and emotionally painful for sure.
Mr. Bethurum, I'm going to ask to show you some of the video evidence that's been previously introduced in exhibit number 11. And
Sure.
have you had the opportunity prior to today to view some of this evidence?
Yes.
And an opportunity that you've reviewed recently in the last week or so?
Yes.
I am going to show you what is exhibit number 11 and folder 11. Mr. Bethurum, do you see yourself in this image?
I do.
And could you touch the screen and just identify where you are at?
Did that work on y'all's end?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it not on yours?
No, it's good.
And if you can just generally describe what is going on right now.
It looks like David Bates and I are just standing next to each other, chatting about something. I'm not sure. It just looks like we're having a good time.
And I am going to skip ahead a little bit. Now it's at 2:44 and 37. Can you describe if you see yourself and what's going on now?
Yes. It seems like in that scene, it was Patrick, Paul, and I just kind of joking around, messing with each other like we always had. All friendly. I mean, you can tell that all 3 of us are laughing right there. just messing around.
Mr. Bethurum, you testified that you were having some alcohol that evening. Did you have too much alcohol to where that you couldn't remember anything that happened?
No,
And any of the issues with your memory, is that related to alcohol or related to something else?
it's not related to alcohol.
And Mr. Bethurum, did you know Michael Mosley on December 21st, 2019?
No.
Since then, have you learned who he is?
Yes.
Do you remember ever seeing him that night?
No, ma'am.
Do you remember any interactions that he had with any of your other friends?
No, ma'am.
And specifically, when you said that you swung at someone when you were outside, was it Michael Mosley that you swung at?
It was not.
And are you sure about that?
I'm positive.
I am going to fast forward to this point, which is 2:46:50. Mr. Bethurum, do you remember anything at all occurring between Ms. Yoder and Mr. Mosley inside the bar?
No.
Do you remember leaving the bar?
Yes.
And do you remember anything happening at the top of the stairs that concerned you?
No, it just seemed like, we were all waiting our turn to go down the stairs. There were a lot of people trying to go down the stairs at the same time. Wasn't really paying much attention to anything. I had no reason to.
And I'm going to show you Exhibit 11, Folder 10. I'm going to skip ahead to 2:47:20. Which again, Mr. Bethurum, do you remember leaving and going down the stairs with your friends?
Yes.
And at this point, did you hear anything that concerned you?
No.
Now I'm going to show you Exhibit 11, Folder 7. And if you could describe kind of what you see in this video, as well as if you could describe where you are and what you were doing.
Sure, that's me walking out. I'm in the circle right now. Paul slaps the sign. I didn't mean to touch it right there. And that's me kind of walking over behind him. Just waiting for our Uber. And I have my back turned here. And I turn around and see what's going on. You can see me watching. Punches are still being thrown. It's not breaking up. Trying to keep people out of it. And that's when there's a female shoved to the ground. The punch is still being thrown. I go to confront this individual right there. And that's when I was struck in the face. And I'm on the ground at this point.
And is that the part where you didn't remember actually getting knocked to the ground?
Correct.
Mr. Bethurum, I'm showing you Exhibit 11, Folder 7.
Yes.
Could you touch the screen to show where you are? And is this the point that you went to confront the people about your friend?
Yes.
And if you can press the clear button, it will remove that arrow. And if you could touch the screen to show where you are. And this interaction here, is this prior to you being struck?
Yes.
And can you describe what you see happening here?
I was just struck in the face.
And can you describe what just happened there?
Yes, I was walking away with my hand over my face, and one of the people in the group that just ran over shouldered me to the ground.
And that is what you described as something that you did not remember happening right after, is that right?
Correct.
And who is that is standing there with you?
Patrick Wells.
Which at some point, Mr. Bethurum, do you go across the street?
Yes.
And what happens when you go across the street?
As soon as I heard Clay's been stabbed, I turned, walked across the street where I found him laying there, and then I got down, tried to assess what was going on, tried to locate where he was stabbed, and see if I could help out in any way. After about, I would say, 30 seconds of doing so, one of the bouncers from the bar that was actually trying to help Clay out as well, he pushed me in the chest. He's like, "Bro, you've been stabbed too," and I kind of just didn't pay attention to it. And then he kind of forcefully picked me up. He was like, "No, you're bleeding a lot."
Did you even realize that you were bleeding at that time?
No.
And what did he do?
He handed me a clean rag from inside the bar, and I put it over my eye, and he kind of escorted me away from where Clay was laying and to this little wall in front of the bar and set me down there.
When did you realize that your elbow was injured?
Not until the paramedics were about to put me in an ambulance.
Now I'm going to ask that this witness be handed 5 photographs which have been shown to defense counsel, and they have been pre-marked A through E. Mr. Bethurum, if you could look at those photographs and let me know if you recognize those.
Yes.
And are those photographs that were taken of you and your injuries on that December 21st of 2019?
Yes.
All right, this time I would ask that those photographs be introduced as the next numbered exhibit, which I believe might be 60.
Yes.
Where did you do that? Just for the record, is it 60?
It is.
Okay, 68 through. And I have available position. Mr. Bethurum, this is Exhibit 60A. Could you describe what is shown here?
That's me laying in a hospital bed.
And can you just describe for the record your left eye?
Yes, that's some sort of protective cover that the people at the hospital had put over it. There's someone there trying to address the wounds, maybe clean some blood up. Is there anything else?
This is 60B. Can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, that's an image of my of the stab wound to my arm, wrapped.
And this is 60C. Can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, that's an image of the stab wound to my left arm uncovered.
And 60D, can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, that's an uncovered image of the stab wound to my left eye.
And that's the exterior injury to your eye.
Correct.
And 60E.
That's someone assessing the same injury in the previous image.
And that's the stab wound to your left eye. Is that correct?
Correct.
If I can have just one moment. Thank you, Mr. Bethurum. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Hi, Mr. Bethurum. You testified at the preliminary hearing in January of 2020. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And I believe then you said that you were 6'3". Is 6'2" more accurate?
6'2" is accurate. Oftentimes with shoes on, it's 6'3".
Okay. And with that, how much taller than Paul Trapeni were you?
Maybe 3 inches.
Okay. Would you have been as much as 4 inches taller than Clayton Beathard?
Probably about 3.
About 3 inches. Okay. You think he'd be about 5'11"? Is that?
That's about right.
Okay. And you had a relationship with Paul Trapeni since kindergarten,
Yes.
and y'all were very close.
Yes.
And that night, you consumed a total of 8 drinks.
No, I believe it was less than that because some of them were not completely consumed.
Okay. Well, did you report to Nurse Brianna Mitchell at Vanderbilt that you had consumed 8 drinks?
I do not recall that conversation. Possibly so.
Okay. If I may pass you a copy of this, you can refresh it.
Sure.
And it's actually the 4th page of the documents that I gave you, which is what I received, but I think it says page 11 down on the corner, highlighted.
Yes, that's what it says.
Okay, and would you agree that's accurate?
It's not a very detailed account.
So are you saying you had less than 8 drinks?
I can tell you exactly what I had to drink if you would like.
Sure.
I had 4 beers at the McCullough's. I had half of 1 beer at the Kung Fu bar, and I had roughly 2 drinks at the Dogwood bar.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to show you an overhead picture,
Okay.
and it may be that I need to pass this to the, you see it. All right. You see yourself coming out of the restroom area?
Yes.
And I'm going to put a little AB on your stomach area, just to note that that's you. And you see those two in the sort of standing in front of the booth to your right in the picture, two Hispanic men?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you recognize either of those men as the one you hit?
The one with the puffy jacket kind of resembles the guy, but I can't be completely sure.
Okay, all right. And you would be considerably taller than that man, correct?
One might say a little bit taller.
All right. We'll offer that as our next exhibit. And this is stills from that video basically we're just looking at. Now, in the first one, I just want to mark it's sometimes easier to use the still photographs. And you are, if I remember correctly, sort of right underneath the live music venue sign. Can you see it?
I'm right at the top of the image in between the two glares of the light, yes.
Okay, and that's Miss Falver behind you, or, well, I guess somewhat to the left of you?
I would assume so.
Okay, I'm gonna write a little AB up here to denote you. Let me know if I'm doing it wrong. And at some point, I believe you used the word beeline, you make a beeline across the street.
I walked directly across the street.
Okay. All right. And if you can't pick yourself out, I understand certainly.
Okay.
This is you in that when you were doing the beeline.
That's me walking, yes, sir.
Okay. Writing another AB to denote you. Let's see where that. And a few frames later, see yourself right here?
I'm not really sure in this image.
Okay.
The colors are a little different and off.
Oh, that's a little better, yeah. Okay. I mean, if you can't tell, I certainly understand.
I can't tell for sure.
Okay. Can you recognize this as Miss Falver?
No.
Okay. Now this is probably even more difficult, I'm guessing, for you.
Yes, sir.
248-43, is this Clayton Beathard in the white?
Like the previous image, I can't be for sure. I'd have to maybe see it up close or.
All right. Well, that's fine. And here's for a different camera angle, also from 248-43. Now, can you identify Clayton Beathard?
That does look to be Clay.
Okay, I'll put a little CD for Mr. Beathard. And it's pretty dark, but can you see yourself there?
I can't distinguish myself for certain. It seems like that would be me.
Okay, all right.
Based on the.
We'll just leave
Based on
that.
where everyone
We'll
is.
offer this as our little collective exhibit of 3 photos. And on the Sunday, December 29, 2019, you were interviewed out at Battleground Academy with Detective Beavis and Detective Joyce. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think at that time, you used the line, I made a beeline towards this person you thought had harmed or wronged Ms. Falver.
I may have said that.
Okay. And I'm going to show you a video of that. It's defendant ID number 9. Recognize yourself in that photo or video?
Yes.
And you go straight, and then you stop and point. Okay. Recognize all that?
Yes, I would. I don't know if I was pointing or my left arm in that image was down to the side like this. It wasn't like I was sitting there pointing. I think it was more of a what's going on type gesture.
Okay. All right. We'll offer that as our next numbered exhibit. Defendant DFT ID 9. And after, of course, that video ends at 2:48:43, and at that point, you veer off to the right. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
All right, one more photo.
Give us a minute, Mr. Quinn.
I'm sorry.
Give us a second, we've got to
Oh,
go between the
yeah,
glasses.
I apologize. See yourself there, getting ready to throw a punch?
The image went out. There it is. I'm not sure if I can distinguish if that's me or not. Maybe in the video footage I could, but I'm not sure from the picture if I could say for sure that's me.
Okay, all right. Now, you get hit from the back, correct?
It came from my left side. Whether it was front or back, I'm not certain because I didn't even see it happen.
Okay. Now, I mean, since then, have you seen a video where a couple people crash into your back?
Yes.
Okay. And when you go down, you think, holy crap, we've just lost this fight?
I was like, I'm hurt bad. I got hit bad. I was like, I'm out of this. Like, there's no way I can contribute to trying to diffuse this anymore. So that's why I stayed on the ground.
Well, I mean, when you were talking to Detective Beavis on December 29th, that's what you said, I believe, and I can play you that audio.
Sure, I'll listen to that.
Okay.
No, I already have.
Oh, you have listened to it. So
Yes.
you did say, holy crap, we've just lost this fight.
Yes.
Or you think that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's going through my head when I'm on the ground.
All right. And part of the reason you think that is you're really surprised that you're losing this fight.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I just got hit really hard. I was like, wow, if this person's hitting this hard to take my vision out in one punch, that's a formidable opponent.
You expected to win that fight, didn't you?
There was no win or lose that was a mission in my head. It was defending my friends. Defending them would have, I wouldn't call that a win. I would just call that a success.
Well, at that preliminary hearing in January 2020, I believe you said you went to the defense of Thoby Falver. Is that correct?
Yes, and she was involved in the whole group of events.
When you hit whoever you hit, Ms. Favre wasn't anywhere close by, was she?
That's because the group of people had moved past where I saw her go to the ground.
You walked right past Thoby Favre on your way towards hitting somebody, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you did not go to help out Thoby Favre, correct?
That's correct.
And Patrick Wells went to her aid, is that correct?
I'm not sure of that.
And at the time you hit whoever you hit, Ms. Favre was a good 20 feet away from...
I would say 10, maybe 7 or 8.
Are you saying she was in the same lane of Division Street that you were?
No, we were on the far lane. She was probably in the close lane at that time.
Okay, but at that time she was under no threat from whoever you hit, correct?
No, but my friends who were still involved in this moving mass of people were still in threat.
Well, your friends were actually advancing on Mr. Mosley and his friend at that time, is that correct?
That's not how I saw the situation.
And at the time you weren't entirely sure it was Thoby Favre that went to the asphalt, correct?
I was fairly certain that it was, but I was not positive.
Okay. And you weren't even certain that the person you were going to hit had pushed or shoved Ms. Favre, is that correct?
I knew that there were two groups of people, my friends and those individuals involved who were not my friends. I knew that the individuals involved that were not my friends had shoved a female on the ground and were actively involved in punching my friends as well. And so that's when I decided to become involved, because it was apparent that the situation would not defuse.
Well, back in that January 2020 hearing, an attorney named Justin Johnson asked you if you actually saw this person hit or shove Ms. Favre, correct? And he asked you, did you actually see it, or was it just in the rush of everything? And you said the rush of everything. Am I accurately restating what happened at that hearing?
I'm not certain about that exact line, but if it's on the record, then I believe you.
Well, let's play it just to make sure that it is. We're going to play defendant ID 20. This is audio only.
There was a female that hit the ground, correct?
Yes, sir.
Was this after the fight had started?
Yes, sir.
Did you see anybody hit her or push her, or was it in the rush of everything?
It was in the rush of everything. She would.
There was a
The rush of everything, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll offer that as our next exhibit. And also, speaking of that December 29 interview with Detective Beavis, you stated that it was from the back, I got hit in the face. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may have just a moment. Mr. Bethurum, would it be more accurate to say that when you went to punch whoever you punched, that you were more interested in punishing that person than defending another person?
That's false.
All right, thank you.
Anything redirect?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Bethurum, the first time that you are struck, that is the strike to your left eye, is that correct?
Correct.
And that is the stab to your left eye.
Correct.
And you lose vision immediately.
Correct.
And you know that you were struck again because your left elbow's injured, but you don't actually remember that part happening.
No.
Thank you.
One more. Mr. Bethurum, after you say you were struck, you actually advanced another 2 or 3 steps towards the sidewalk. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Watch your step as you step down. Please
Thank
take your
you.
time. All right. All right, gentlemen.
Your Honor, that is the state's proof. In this case, we do not have any other witnesses to call.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this state has rested, but there are some issues that the court needs to address. So you all can step down and go to the jury room. Marul. Okay.
All right.
Okay, we may all be seated. Mr. Quillen, the state has rested.
I was hoping we could have a road trip,
Oh,
and then I'd have some chance to discuss.
okay. All right, we'll take a short break.
All right.
Yes.